If we can onboard new users to crypto, but without them knowing it's crypto. If they know it's crypto, then you didn't do a good enough job. If we can do that and we can bring a team of young builders who are like, look, they ride their ship to the shore and they burn the ship. We need those types of builders, but we have to create an environment where we're worth someone burning their ships for.
Torab Torabi is the CEO of Move Industries, the team focused on building out Movement Network. It aims to bring Move's coding security and performance by enabling developers to deploy scalable, parallelized applications across multiple ecosystems. Coinbase's NFT marketplace, it was a big deal, and then it completely flopped. And then we had Base, and Base now is arguably pretty successful, big chain, etc. But nobody really talks about that. Like, what went wrong?
Every successful industry is littered with dead bodies of projects that failed. And I always joke that in crypto, the difference between pivoting and failing is whether it's like your investor that still supports you. If they support you, you pivoted. If they don't support you, you failed. That's just the price you pay. But the cool thing is that when you have strong foundations, you can actually build new things, right?
Torab, welcome on. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Just enjoying the New York City vibes right now.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
It's okay here. The weather's fine. Yeah, it's like cold enough, fall, it's different season.
It's
but
vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I said you are the CEO of Move Industries. It was prior Movement Labs, correct?
Yes.
And so I would imagine most of the listeners probably know Movement Labs pretty well. And you guys have had quite the year.
Yeah, the vicissitudes, the ups and downs of the market, the industry in general. And obviously, a few months ago, we had a situation with some market makers, and that is actually the first domino that fell that led to us creating Move Industries.
Okay.
And for a fresh start for the team, for the organization, and just everyone involved.
Yeah, so with the market makers thing, termination of Rishi Manche, the former co-founder, and then like the token deal and everything, like I guess at a high level, what really happened there?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of details that obviously we can't share, and I'm sure you probably knew that. But at a high level, what happened is actually Binance flagged that there were some market-making irregularities. And what happened is that we investigated, and what they ended up doing is seizing the funds, about $38 million in cash. And we ended up using that to buy back tokens. So it ended up working out for the community. So we were able to acquire about 1.8%, almost 2% of token supply. And that is in our Move strategic reserve, as we're calling it. And so that's really cool because that is all earmarked and tagged for ecosystem growth, initiatives, incentives. And we actually have some announcements coming up soon on how we're going to allocate it. And it will be good for the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had someone on recently. We were talking a lot about market makers and stuff. And it's like, they're almost like a necessary evil.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
like majority of teams work with them. And then it's like they're there to buy, but then they're also there to sell. They're there to like provide liquidity, all these other things. Like it's way more technical than what I'm watering it down to, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like if you work with lawyers, I hate the fact that they get paid by the hour. It's they have no incentive to get the job done fast.
Right.
And so for market makers, one of the biggest problems is how do you incentivize them? And so they have these strike prices where if the token touches a certain price, even for a second, that they're then able to buy, which then gives them supply. And so I think one of the big things that the industry still hasn't figured out is incentives overall for market makers. And there's like a joke on crypto Twitter called the Burj Khalifa, where the token goes straight up and then straight down.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that pointy top of the Burj Khalifa. And so essentially, it is a general problem. And then because a lot of these deals, so there's a reason why it can't be transparent, is because generally speaking, there's multiple market makers and they're kind of working against one another. And so they wouldn't want another market maker to know that they're involved. Now, at the same time, these guys know what the other guy had for breakfast. So it's like this weird thing where they're competitive, they know each other's details, but they also don't want everything out in the public. And so I think that's something that as an industry, we kind of have to figure out. And then to add to that, they might be getting directives from teams on certain things, and obviously not supposed to listen to it. But again, this is crypto and things happen.
Yeah. I know you guys also did like a third-party audit of the market maker at the time. Was there results from that?
So it was more so a investigation into what happened with the funds, because at the end of the day, everything that happened was on an exchange, and those are behind steel curtains of the exchanges. But what we did is we trying to understand where did the money go. And so the investigation is, for the most part, done, I would say. But obviously, we cannot share all those details publicly. But I do believe that the current fallout that we have was appropriate. So that's what I can say.
Okay.
And that I do think that the team made the correct decision.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a tough place to be, but at the end of the day, it happens. This is just the way it is. In every industry, there's issues that you run into, and so you just have to keep moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, like at the time, obviously now you guys have moved forward and we're going to talk more about that. But when you kind of were going through this, like what was going through your mind in terms of like, how can we make this right again?
Well, I think the first is the personal shock because at least for myself, I'm an all-in person.
Yeah.
So I'm not a 9 to 5 type person. So my background just a little bit is I came from Web 2. I'm a little bit older. I always joked I was the only guy with gray hair or a 401k or a family or a wife in the entire company. And actually, I think a college degree.
Oh my
All right,
gosh.
because our founders are they dropped out of Vanderbilt. But
Right.
so for myself, like I went to Berkeley.
Mhm.
And so I went into Silicon Valley. I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, worked in Web 2, Salesforce, then went to mobile analytics, and then came into crypto. And so from my side, I've been through a lot, seen a little bit more. And so the first thing for myself was shock. And so the reason I bring the background is that if I wanted to have like a stable 9 to 5, just clock in, clock out, I would have never left the industry I was in. But for myself, I just saw this crazy opportunity. And one of the most intoxicating things as a person is to feel that you can drive impact and have real tangible effects on the outcome of things. And so for myself, I love that. And that's why I joined the team to begin with. So I was one of the founding team members. And so, being all in, neck deep into everything, except for the details of everything that happened, I guess, it was a shock to be like, damn, that really sucks because there's like a human element to it. And, there's all these birthdays you missed and, soccer games and those types of things. And you start thinking, damn, was it all for nothing? And so after we got past that, I looked around in the ecosystem. I looked at the builders. And so actually some of them approached me and said, hey, we've been working with you because I was essentially their conduit into the ecosystem because I was the BD biz dev guy. And so about 5 or 6 different teams actually approached me and they were like, hey, would you consider like running the project if you were ever given the opportunity? And it was weird because it all happened at the same time. And I still don't know if it was coordinated, but when I saw that, and that, to me, it showed 2 things. Number one is that they have trust in me, and second, that they have trust in the ecosystem. Because generally when bad things happen, everyone kind of scurries for the exits.
Yeah.
And so when I saw all these builders, and they're like our biggest builders, turning and saying, hey, if you ride, we ride, that obviously makes you feel really empowered and makes you feel really good about the future of the ecosystem.
Yeah. So that's ultimately what made you stay at the time too, and kind of ride it out, literally, to quote you.
Yeah, to ride it out. Look, at the end of the day, so it's not just me, it's also our team.
Of course.
So our team is like 30-ish odd people, depending contractors, how all that stuff. So let's say like 35 people. Of them, it's been 8 months or 9 months since everything took place. We have over a 90% retention rate of talent, which, okay, just in crypto in general is pretty impressive just because there's always a new protocol that just raised $10 billion and they can pay you a crazy salary and, tokens go up, tokens go down. But the fact that our team stuck through everything, that was also one of the reasons where I spoke to the team and I said, hey guys, I'm considering this. And they kind of gave me their support. And when I had their support, I had the ecosystem support, I decided to continue moving forward. And so one thing that maybe most people don't know is when everything happened, it was like a really juicy story. And so we had a lot of the big crypto Twitter personalities, just sincerely reach out and ask if there's anything they can do. And so I actually took a lot of them up on those offers and I had conversations with them, like the big famous names, I always joke everyone except for CZ, I would say, just because, I don't have a line of contact with him. But they reached out, we had these conversations and I said, what do you guys think? I'd say the majority said, hey man, just walk away. There's other opportunities out there. But although it might have been at that time maybe sound advice from their perspective, I just couldn't because it felt like I'd be committing treason to the team, to the ecosystem, to the investors, and then also just to myself. Like I didn't feel that this is a adopted baby. I felt that this is my baby, and I had this sense of extreme ownership. So it would kind of be like leaving my baby on the firefighter doorsteps or something like that, fire department doorsteps, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. I think that's honestly the advice you hear a lot of times from people is like, oh, you could just walk away, but they don't actually know what it's like when you're in it. And like you've built it, you know, you were there, one of the founding team members, and you knew what it was like internally. I think I don't want to like put words in your mouth, but you probably also see the potential, right?
Yeah, so that's the irony of this whole thing is, man, I just wish it wasn't.
It was so early.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
early too. And, from my side, I feel that the opportunity that was there when I first joined, it's actually bigger now than it was before.
Mm.
And so now it's just a matter of, getting our stuff together and then being able to move forward.
Yeah.
And so right now there's all these moving pieces, and for the most part, we're past the worst of it. And so I'm like really optimistic. And I think the team is as well. Like if you ever get a chance to speak to them, like we feel so good about what's ahead of us. It's just, you have to get there. Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, trust is a really big thing. And we talk about this a lot with different guests on the show. And it varies across the board. Like some people, I think most crypto people don't trust anything. They won't even click a link. You know?
Yeah.
So how do you think about like building trust today and like moving forward with everything in mind? Like you guys have obviously had time in the background to rebuild, reflect, and everything. Where do you guys stand now?
Well, trust is one of those very difficult things where for most people, there's a baseline trust when they just meet you. And then as you prove yourself, you kind of build on that trust. But, it's like that saying, it can take a lifetime to build trust, a moment to break it.
Yep.
And we definitely were in that situation. But there's a few variables here. Number one is the individuals who were associated with all the issues and the things that went bad are no longer associated with the project. So that was removed, right? We didn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And so I'd ask people not to do that. Secondly, we've continued to act in good faith and do everything we can to actually push the project forward. And we are, and we see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, at the end of the day, there is no silver bullet. There's no cocktail of words that I can say that are going to make people like, wow, I really trust them now. It's one of those things where you put your head down, take your lunch pail to work, put your hard hat on, and just work. Yeah, just do the work and continue until, people have a reason to trust you. And I actually don't blame people for not trusting us. So I'm not shaking my fist at the sky.
Sure.
Why don't they trust me? At the end of the day, look, man, you have to prove yourself, especially in this industry, this whole trust but verify. So I think right now people are in the verify phase before they get into the trust phase. Mm-hmm. And so from my side, all I can do is first and foremost start with trust with the internal team. Like at the end of the day, if there is no internal trust, then you can never, vibes is short for vibrations, and it starts internally and it goes externally. And so for me, the first thing I did is huddle internally with the team and say, let's get our stuff together. Now, the cool part was, again, I think that everyone was on the same page, hence the crazy retention rate. And so that was pretty easy in terms of like trust building. And when you look to your left and to your right and you see that everyone is dedicated as much as you are, and they're like, hey, man, we're going to play, we're going to play this until the wheels fall off type of thing. Mm-hmm. It makes everyone else have that wind in their sails that they need to continue pushing forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of times too, like it's so important to talk about things that didn't work or like failures is a simple way to put it. Like, because people could learn from that. And also a lot of times we only talk about the successes and like, oh, look how amazing this project's doing, or look at how they succeeded. But nobody talks about like all the things that along the way that went wrong that brought them to that point. And like, yeah, they might be doing well now, but like an example I always give, and they probably hate this, is like Coinbase's NFT marketplace. Uh-huh. Like that was supposed to be some massive thing. I wrote about it when I was at TechCrunch. Everyone was covering it. It was a big deal. And then it completely flopped. And then we had Base. And Base now is arguably pretty successful, big chain, etc. But nobody really talks about that. Like what went wrong, right? And I think if we talk more openly about what went wrong, mm-hmm. people, one, will respect the fact that you're owning it. And two, they could probably learn from it as well.
Well, this is the price you pay for innovation, right? I grew up watching a lot of Shark Tank.
I love Shark Tank.
Right? Yeah. And so I think it's Mark Cuban. He goes, the first one through the door gets shot and the second one walks over the body type of thing. So like, this is the price of innovation. Right. So yes, you want to be at the forefront. You're going to catch the first bullets that start flying in the direction, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think with NFTs, the thing that people need to understand is that when you're trying something new, you will fail. Look at AI. If you remember 10 years, so I'm from Bay Area, Silicon Valley. So I remember people were so ashamed of saying the word AI that were like, machine learning, right? So they just say ML. Mm-hmm. No one said AI, not in job descriptions, not in titles, because AI made people think about that movie with that, what was
like
it?
iRobot or
something?
No,
not iRobot. It was literally, I forgot what it's called. It was called artificial intelligence. It was,
or like Her.
Yeah,
Where he's
exactly.
like dating the
Or
young
Terminator,
person.
right? So those are the images that get conjured. And so I think that when you looked at a lot of those companies, they failed. Or even, Web 2, when all these shopping websites launched, and obviously Amazon ended up winning and but like, look, every successful industry is littered with dead bodies of projects that failed. And I always joke that in crypto, the difference between pivoting and failing is whether it's like your investor that still supports you. If they support you, you pivoted. If they don't support you, you failed.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just the price you pay. But the cool thing is that when you have strong foundations, you can actually build new things, right? So kind of like, when they purposely burn forests so that they can grow back healthier. Like if you look at Solana, a lot of the infrastructure that they built for NFTs was repurposed for this whole meme coin phase, which now we both know is kind of dwindling. But hey, markets are like that, right?
Right.
And so I do think that when you build cool things with strong infrastructure, with a long-term vision, you build for the long term, but in the short term, you have to be very fluid in how you play it. And like that's like the perfect example. They built it for NFTs, and people use a lot of that same infrastructure for meme coins, and that's what allowed Solana to go for like their 2.0, their Act 2.
If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that every token launch is high stakes, but Forged helps projects get it right. Thousands of Web3 projects leverage Forge's free tools to design smarter tokenomics, engage market makers on fair terms, plan listings strategically, and monitor liquidity after launch. Start using the Forge platform for free or sign up for white glove advisory services. You brought up your investors too, or just investors in general. Like sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're not. You guys have been building in the background, right? And I'm imagining that you guys have spoken to them since everything kind of transpired, right? What's their sentiment now? How do they feel?
I think it's across the board. There's so many different investors, but I think just like the team went through shock and maybe community members went through shock, I think investors went through shock too, right? And for a lot of them, Rushi was who they invested into, and he's no longer here. And so I think if you ask all our investors the same question, you probably get a different answer for every single one. But I'd say that there are certain investors that have been very, very helpful. And I'm happy anyone who wants to know, share those with you. But there's been certain investors who've been very helpful through every turn. They want to help us be successful, help us navigate. And then there's certain investors who, if you need help and you ask for it, they'll give it. And there's investors who
they just give you cash.
Yeah. They already did their part.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
They wrote the check.
Yeah.
And so it's okay. This is the world we live in, and it's part of being mature is realizing that it's the Pareto's principle, right? 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people, and that just works in every aspect of life. And the same thing with investors, where 80% of the value comes from a very small subset. So I'm actually pretty happy with our investors and how much help they've been able to provide.
I've got to ask, have you spoken to Rushi? Has the team spoken to him? What's the deal?
No, I mean, I can't speak for anyone else.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You specifically, or like
no,
the executive? Or...
I mean, I think when the first things happen, there's just so much confusion, but it's been quite a while, I think, since we spoke, and I think there's like legal reasons why and all that type of stuff. And look, at the end of the day, whatever happened, and I don't wish ill for anyone, just in general. And so from my side, I can only focus on moving forward and not looking backwards, which is one of the reasons, again, why we have Move Industries. It's so it can be a forward-looking and not backward-looking. And so I know that's a really corny thing to say, but we can't have any rearview mirrors right now. It has to be full speed ahead, because, dealing with all this plus actually pushing a company forward in blockchain, where it's so cutthroat, there's new chains coming out every day, attention spans are so short. And so you have to be able to just cut through the noise and move forward.
Yeah. All right. Looking to present day, it is now Movement Network, right?
Yeah.
And it wants to be known as the People's Chain. What was kind of the decision behind that?
Well, I think depending on when you got into crypto, you can kind of tell the ethos of the person. So from my perspective, I've been in since 2017. So that's when I bought my first Ripple. And then I didn't know you can buy a piece of a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I can't afford $6,000.
I was honestly the same way.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't afford a Bitcoin. And they're like, you don't need a whole Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it'd be nice to have a whole Bitcoin. But...
yes. And I remember I bought it for like 11 cents, and then I sold it for 13 cents the next day. And I legitimately thought that Warren Buffett had nothing on me. I was like, I am an animal. I was like, why do people work? I remember being at a cafe. Why do people even work? Just do what I just did.
Yeah. Just day trade.
Yeah. Just day trade, like write it up.
Go wrong.
Nothing can go wrong. Just like perps that we see right now. And so when I first got into Bitcoin, it was actually because Andres Antonopoulos Shout out to Andres. He was like one of the first people that was really talking about immutable money, the role the IMF has in the global landscape and all that stuff. And I was like, whoa, like this is amazing. And so from my side, it was always about like banking the unbanked and helping the less fortunate. And obviously, for people that got in recently, it's more about the meme coins, or maybe they got in because of the stable coin mania that's going on right now. But from my side, it was like, okay, at the end of the day, when I look at a lot of the financial instruments, if you're in America, you're really served. Like there's not much meat left on the bone there. And yes, there's certain things that can be done really easily. But I think crypto's looking for its Apple Pay moment. I don't know if you remember, but when Apple Pay came out, I was like, holy shit, this is so sick. Like literally, I don't need my credit card anymore. Or I remember when you could finally take pictures of checks into your
That's true.
banking
Just
app.
deposit on your phone.
Yes,
Yeah.
I didn't have to go in person. So there's these there's these small things in life where like, wow, that was a huge unlock. And then okay, cool, on to the next thing, and just life continues. And I think that from my side, it's how can we bring that to the masses? And we used to say third world, now it's global south. That's the more PC word. But from my my background is I was born and raised in the Bay Area, but my family's from Afghanistan. And so my family's seen a lot of those ups and downs, starting with the Soviet Union, and our family literally have to leave their houses with just like whatever they can carry on their backs. And then when like the Taliban first fell, and then their money became useless, and there's like all these different stories that I can tell you. And so it's how do we bank these people, and how do we, or not necessarily bank them, but how do we give them the functionality of a bank and money rails? And I remember when the Taliban first retook over, one of the biggest problems was no money could go in. And so people were using Bitcoin. And I was like, man, like it's so crazy because the people who get hurt, it's not the rich aristocrat or whoever's in control. It's
always the average person.
It's always the average person. It's the poor person who can't get money in or out to be able to feed their families. And so they're always, what's the African proverb? The elephants fighting, the ants get crushed.
Oh.
And it's,
I don't know that one.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
Yeah, it sounds right. And so that kind of is what happens when anytime you have sanctions or these types of things, it's the average person that gets hurt. And that to me is why crypto was created. And so that is what I'm focused on is how do we bring value to those people? Because again, there's not like, if I want to send money to you, I have Venmo, I have Zelle, I have, and then of course, crypto, I can send from my wallet to yours. But at the end of the day, other people don't have that. And so how do we bring it to them? That's like my number one goal and vision. And so when I say the people's chain, it's meant to serve the people who aren't already served. Whereas right now, I do feel that a lot of the focus, especially with RWAs, the people who are using Invesco today on chain, there's like a 99% Venn diagram of people who have access to it right now. So I'm more excited about the people who don't have access.
Yeah, I guess beyond like speculative trading or other areas like that, what kind of like incentive opportunities or programs are you focused on that front for providing to existing entrants, but then also new people entering crypto for the first time, and kind of like those ants compared to the elephants, so to speak? And we're not going to call them ants because that's maybe not the most nice thing, but for this analogy,
Hey, as an ant, I don't see
as a fellow ant.
As a fellow ant, I don't see it as a slight.
Okay, sure.
So I do think that for the most part, in crypto especially, another big unlock was, I think for most people, and I'm going to shill Solana a little bit,
sure,
because I was early in the Solana ecosystem. I used to work at the largest DeFi protocol in Solana called Marinade, was liquid staking. Anyways, but I do remember the first time I used the Phantom wallet, and I always joke, everyone in crypto, if they started with like MetaMask, they remember the first moment that they used Phantom, like holy crap.
Yeah.
And they also remember the first time they went back to MetaMask after using
and how horrible it was. No offense, MetaMask.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's not about MetaMask. I think it was just like
the user
Ethereum and the gas fees.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I was like, oh my God, I have to, like, first of all, the shock is the gas fee of like $4 or $5 to approve the contract and then approve the transaction.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, man, what the hell was I doing?
And it could fail.
Yeah. I mean, and look, if I made, I always joke that I've never met a poor ETH maxi, that general ETH maxis, they made all their wealth from Ethereum. And so, yes, if I had like 5,000 ETH or whatever, and I had thousands of ETH, I don't mind paying, 0.1 ETH for a transaction. But for the average person, that's just untenable, which is what caused this L2 mania to proliferate. And so back to your question about how do we get people excited? So when we talk about that unlock, when, for example, when people first use the Phantom wallet, we have been focused on creating good crypto experiences, but we still don't have good experiences. So what we need, we're going against the big boys, right? So we're going against the Robin Hoods, we're going against the projects that already have product market fit and that everyone uses on their day-to-day basis. So you have to be much, much better, right? The example I always give is how much better would an Android phone have to be? Do you have an iPhone?
I have an iPhone.
Okay.
How much better would it have to be for me to move over?
No, it's a question.
Lot.
10%, 20%,
like 150%. Yeah, because I'm just so used to it. But there are people who are diehard Android fans, right?
But I'm talking about the people in the middle that can be swayed, right? So I guess my question, if I gave you the best Android phone for free, would you consider switching?
Maybe. I consider anything. I gotta see the specs.
Open-minded, open-minded. Sure. But my point is not to put you on the spot. It was more so of like when especially when it comes to money. Like I use Chase Bank. I use Chase Bank because I opened a ATM account when I was 16 years old.
It was the same way for me. Yeah.
And so it's
my dad just put me on it.
Exactly. Yeah. And back then it was Washington Mutual, Walmart. I don't know if you remember those days. But anyways, the point is that especially when it comes to money, there's a lot of gravity and inertia, and it's really hard to shake people out of it.
Yeah.
And so if we are going to onboard the next 100 million users, it has to just be a better solution, full stop, and almost has to be an order of magnitude better. Or, which is what our strategy is you go for the specific age range where they're still malleable in their financial decisions that they're going to be making, right? You go for like the late high school, college, a young professional, because those are the people where they're just coming into money and now they have to make these decisions. And also the big benefit for us in crypto, and I joke about this, is that for my children, so I have 3 kids, for them, Bitcoin is just as old as gold is. So to them, it's not like Bitcoin is new, gold is old. It's all the same age because it existed. Yeah. It existed when they were born, right? And so when we think about the next wave of users, they're not going to have any alliance or allegiance, I should say, to Ethereum or Solana or even Movement per se. Like they're just going to say, "Hey, I use this product. I liked it. It works. It's good." And so that's what we need to focus on. And so that's what we are going to be like. That is our entire mission for the next foreseeable future, is just focusing on this, creating better user experiences, going mobile. 60% of web traffic is mobile, and most crypto dApps, they're made for desktop, right? And maybe you've seen it before where you go and then you have to like copy the URL, paste it into the MetaMask, then you're like, dude, this is a bad experience, right? Yeah. But you're like, but because there's money on the line, I'm willing to do it, right? Yep. And so the question is how do we get to those people? So that's what I focused on.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I actually heard from someone who works with high schoolers, they're like a teacher, a friend of mine, that kids actually see Bitcoin as kind of like the boomer coin. And so exactly to your point that like your kids probably see like gold and Bitcoin in the same like arena because they're both older than them. But kids nowadays, they don't even care about Bitcoin as much. They care about like the new fun ones. And I think that was during the meme coin cycle too. But still, it's like, dang, Bitcoin's a boomer coin, like to them.
Yeah, you're talking about Bitcoin. Okay, Ankh.
I know, literally.
Well, I mean, I remember. So someone was like, "Look, when they make you pick the year of your birthday." I remember when I went to like 19, my kid was like, "Oh my God, you were born in the 1900s." I was like, "Wait a minute."
I know.
I was born in the 1900s.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy to me that like people born in the 2000s can like drink and vote now.
Yes, they can. And
2025.
Yeah, but exactly. So I think there's a lot of things that we believe are ossified that aren't. Right? Like if I'm new to crypto, I don't give a damn that Ethereum came first. I don't I literally don't care. Like there's no reason for me to care.
Right.
And what that really matters is, does the product work?
Yeah.
And so, I think that that's hard for us because there is so much tribalism in crypto, and you kind of like have to choose your gang. Are you Crip, your Blood, are you EVM, are you SVM, are you Move VM? And so then you kind of get entrenched in these identity politics, and then the end user, and look, we did the same thing, right? So one of the big things that we did at Movement is as we transition into L1, not to front run you, is that we had, we're going to settle on Ethereum. So we're technically going to be L2. We're going to write our DA onto Celestia, and then we're going to use Tendermint consensus, which is a Cosmos thing. And it's like, we're just get this hodgepodge Frankenstein chain of like, make everyone love us. But the reality is that it doesn't matter. Like this whole alignment meta was a meme. What really matters is it a good product? And so when we looked at it, like, dude, 8-second latency is not feasible for what we want to build. And so that's why we decided to have a fully like sovereign stack. It's our own L1, our own consensus, our own validators, all that jazz, and say, you know what, this is the only path forward for us.
Yeah.
And so I actually wouldn't be surprised if we don't see more L2s becoming L1s.
Yeah.
So I actually see that's very likely, but we'll see.
Yeah. So Movement Network it's its own L1, but it'll be Ethereum compatible. So those Ethereum community members, developers, etc., could kind of like move in and out.
No,
Is that
so
correct or wrong?
no. So originally, what we were going. So there's two aspects to it. One is just the transaction would settle on Ethereum, and that is not has nothing to do with EVM per se. And then there was we're going to build a transpiler called Fractal, which would allow it's like Solidity contracts to be deployed on the Move VM. But there's two issues. Number one is that's a very difficult product, and especially today for people listening, today Balancer was hacked, right? And that is a huge OG DeFi protocol, and that's Solidity on EVM, which is like they're made for each other, right? It's the same. So imagine the potential problems that you can run into if it's written in Solidity and deployed on the Move VM. And so actually most of the EVM teams I spoke to or Solidity teams, they said, hey, we'd rather rewrite it into Move anyways. Like we'd rather get a Move developer and rewrite it. And so what I ended up seeing is that there is no business use case either. So besides the whole security concern, people are like, hey, if I'm going to be on Move and I want to take advantage of all the benefits of the Move language, I'm just going to rewrite it into Move. So I ended up seeing that there is no real appetite for this.
Yeah. On the front of the people's chain and kind of building for new entrants, what are the use cases that you think mobile first as well, or maybe mobile first in mind that like people really want and need? Like what would drive a normal person in?
Well, first and foremost, I don't believe that there's a tech moat for most chains. I think that for the most part, outside of maybe you can't do a club on Ethereum mainnet. Other than that, every other chain that you see, what I can do on one, I can do on the other. And even if there is a potential use case that can only happen on the Move VM, does anyone care? Right? So it's one of those things where, is it a moat worth defending? Right? And so I don't believe there is any. And obviously, one of the things that as Move developers that we have to do as an ecosystem is find those use cases. But at the same time, if you just can create things in a better fashion and get to users where they are, that's how you win. And so to answer your question, at the end of the day, it's trying to find the problems first. So one thing that we have in crypto is we have a tendency to find a solution and then be a hammer looking for a nail, looking for the problems. Like, okay, economic security, it's a huge problem. Yeah. Is it?
Was like really? We got product. And now we need market fit.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think for us, most teams, they need to just go to the whiteboard, restart from scratch and say, hey, where can we help people? Start from there. And then once you figure that out, then you can start building out products. And I think for a lot of us, we build out products before there's a use case for it. And then we try to find the use case, which is the opposite of how things generally work. Unless you're very thesis driven, where you're like, hey, I'm going to build this knowing that the future will want it, right? It's like the Steve Jobs thing. It's like, I tell customers what they want.
Yeah.
Sure. If you have that type of vision and that resolve and you can weather the storm and go through all that difficulty, then sure, then I'm down with it. But I think most people aren't in that boat.
Yeah. I know you also said that RWAs are broken. Can you expand on that? Because everyone's obsessed with them right now. So it's a contrarian take, maybe.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, there's a few reasons why I think people are obsessed with it. Number one is like, TradFi is buying our bags. You know, there's like the whole like finally institutions are, I mean, they're not really buying your bags unless your bags are Bitcoin, to be honest. And I guess Ethereum too. Shout out Tom Lee. But at the, for RWAs, you're bringing these assets on chain. But the question is, again, for who? Who are you addressing? Who are you helping? And the main PMF that I've seen is actually from institutions that hold like these yield-bearing assets and want to use them as collateral for when they're using exchanges. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of circular use case, right? So like institution for institution, still good. I'm not opposed to it, but is the average person going to use these products? I argue that the average person, we should walk around New York and do some interviews like, hey, do you know where that 2% at 2% of your bank account?
I have no idea.
Where does that come from? Like, they might.
I'm trying to be insulting. Yeah. It's just true. Like the average person doesn't think about these things.
They don't know where that comes from. They don't know the Federal Reserve. They don't know the FOMC. What the hell is that? Who's Jeremy Powell?
Yeah, it's all random acronyms. So that maybe not Jeremy or Jerome Powell. Yeah, that's true. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, it is kind of like a niche, right? Yeah.
I said Jeremy on purpose.
Why, to catch? See if I
no, not for you. Just in general. It's like no one cares. Yeah.
Okay, that's funny.
Yeah. And so my point is that, most people, they don't know and they don't necessarily care. Just does it work, right? Like, for example, when someone uses Apple Pay, there's a lot of financial engineering that goes and wizardry that goes on in the back end to make things happen. And I remember even when my phone doesn't have internet, my Apple Pay still works. I'm like, what the hell kind of sorcery is this?
That is wild.
Right? And so my point is that most people don't care. And so for us, like for most people, when it comes to RWAs, the question again is, who are you addressing? And so, we talk about Invesco, Goldfinch, BlackRock. These words have literally zero meaning to the average person. I only learned about them recently, and I'm like in the space, And so for these people, all they're going to care is, what's the yield? How do I get it? And how ruggable is this? Like, what's the chance I'm going to lose all my money? And so based on their personal risk tolerance, they'll choose whether they want to participate or not. And so the question is, how do we abstract all that away? And right now, everyone is just, I want to use an appropriate term. Everyone is patting each other on the back and be like, oh my God, you're so amazing. We've tokenized $1 billion. Okay, cool. It sits in 2 wallets on chain. No one's using it, but my TVL numbers look sexy. Great. Who are you impressing?
Yeah.
And so that to me is kind of where we are today. But I do think there's a path forward. I just think that the celebration for RWAs is just really funny to me at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think also it speaks to kind of the gap between crypto's promise and its current reality, kind of to the point you're making as well. Like when we talk about these metrics, a lot of times, like if you look under the hood, they're vanity metrics more than anything.
And the worst part about the vanity metrics is that we made them up. It's not like it's not like a teacher came and said, "Hey, if you get
not we,
yeah, well,
the industry,
yes, we as the industry, yes,
Yeah.
we as the industry, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if your TVL numbers are down, people will be like, "Aha, look at your TVL numbers are down." But if they're up, no one's really impressed. So it's this weird. Like I'm telling you, as a architect of the ecosystem, right? So right now, I could easily, and like literally within 48 hours, I can probably get you $1 billion in TVL on the chain. But the question is at what cost and who are you impressing? Like I would just have to empty out the treasury, give a crap ton of move incentives, talk to LPs and make it happen. But there's 2 problems. Number one is they're just going to farm your token and dump. And then secondly, we're not actually expanding the pie. Like when you look at the total TVL, it stays the same. It just like it sloshes from one chain to another chain and it's the same LPs farming, dumping. And so the way the current system is set up just really doesn't make sense because, again, it's not like by bringing this liquidity, you're enabling new use cases. You're just getting people like your community excited. Oh, my God, we hit X amount of TVL. And so that's the same thing with RWAs where, okay, I have a friend. All right. So my friend wanted to get his his testosterone levels checked. And so he had his appointment that day and he was rubbing this cream on his body. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is like exogenous testosterone cream. And I was like, why are you rubbing testosterone cream on yourself before you get your T levels checked? Because I want to get he's like, I want a high reading. And I was like, no one made you go and get this test. Like,
yeah, you want an accurate reading.
Yeah, it's like the DJ Khaled, congratulations, you played yourself, I was like, who are you doing this for? And so I feel like we do the same thing with TVL. It's like, okay, who said TVL is a good metric? It's helpful. It's generally like, your blood pressure. Like that's one aspect of health. Yeah. And yes, it's a good number to know. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, track it, but that is definitely not how I would,
fully describe.
Yeah, describe or gauge the success of the health community.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What other metrics do you care about then?
I think the velocity of money is a big one. So it's one of those things where, they say, oh, people who can do 20 push-ups, they have an 80% chance of living to like 80. What I made up those numbers, but the one I'm talking about. We've all read it. And so it's not the fact that someone can do the push-ups, it's that everything that leads to someone being able to do the 20 push-ups. Okay. So for me, one of those metrics is what is the natural non-incentivized APY of your largest lending protocol, because that means that there's a demand for stable coins. So if there's a demand for stable coins, that generally means that there's actions for people to do on the chain. And that to me is one of those 20 push-up biomarkers, we'll call them, for ecosystems.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest one for me. Is like, okay, if we removed all incentives, what will the borrow APY and supply APY be? And so that's probably a big one. And then just overall usage. Again, anything that is monitored or quantified can be gamed, right? So I can easily just get USDC for USDT, which a lot of chains do, and I don't. As far if it's happening, it's not because I'm enabling it or supporting it. Is that they'll just swap USDC for USDT and then like $100 at a time and just swap every second, bing, 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 bing.
To get a lot of transactions.
Crazy transactions and volume, but I always say, do you know anyone that uses that chain? And they say no. And look, at the end of it, in my opinion, right now, the clear winners are Ethereum, Solana, with Solana actually being ahead in terms of like actual users, and then maybe Base, just because they have like that Coinbase advantage. I think other chains, everyone else still looking for their identities, and they're still looking for their aha PMF moment. And so, yeah, that's so I think if that's where the chains are, then same thing for the RWAs. And so back to your question, which is how do you measure success? I think ultimately it's like, how many people do you know that actually use the chain?
Yep.
That to me is like the ultimate, you made it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anything specific from those chains that you mentioned that you guys want to replicate in your own way, or you want to go completely separate direction then?
I think so Move has a very special difficulty compared to, so as you know, EVM uses Solidity, SVM uses Rust. And so they have their own community. So EVM was first, and they have the largest quantity of developers.
Yep.
And they have Lindy, they've been around the longest. And it's also like, if I'm a young developer, if I can be good at Solidity, I can lock in a few $100K a year, easy salary. So it's easy to sell young talent to come and learn Solidity. For Solana, that's where all the action is right now, like non-institutional action, let's call it. And so if I'm young and I'm very curious, I'll probably go towards Solana, learn Rust, and specifically for SVM. And also, they went through a very, we call it the $8 moment when it went to $8. Yep. After the SBF, FTX collapse, all that happened. And so those people are like battle hardened.
Oh, 100%. They rose from the dead.
Yeah, they rose from the dead. So they've seen it all right? What is dead may never die. And so they are not going to leave that ecosystem for anyone else. Mm-hmm. And so you have these hardened, we'll call them zealots, who love the chain, love the ecosystem, love the founders. And so they have this crazy energy. Move has a few problems. Number one is that it is a newer language. It was developed by Facebook, right? So a lot of the Move talent is in the Bay Area, and they're older. So you're not going to convince a dude that worked in Facebook and Google to come and, work at build a DEX for you, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, dude, I can make a crap ton of money, stock options, 401k. They're probably married, have kids. And so what you need to do is, our biggest problem is, how do we bring in new Move developers? Now, to make it even more complicated, it's not just Move, right? There's the Sui VM, then there's the Libra/Aptos VM, which is the one that we use, right? So that's the version of Move that we use. And so already it's a new language, and then it's bifurcated into these two versions of the language, and they're not compatible with one another. And so one of our biggest initiatives for this year is actually building out Move University. And so more details to come. I probably am front running our marketing team. They won't be happy, but we are.
Cut it. No.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to be building this out to bring on the next wave of Move developers.
Okay. There's also the Move Alliance, right? How does that play into things?
So the Move Alliance actually has not been announced yet. Mm-hmm. However, I hope to share that in the next 2 weeks, and that is more so about ecosystem alignment. I'm very opinionated on TGEs, very opinionated on specifically ecosystem TGEs, and then also I think financial alignment. So I'm a sales guy. I come from a sales background. If people are not financially incentivized and aligned, it just won't work. You're just counting on, because he loves me, I hope he does the right thing. That is not a way to build a sustainable ecosystem. Yeah.
That's fair. With the L1 mainnet launch coming up, staking incentives coming soon, a bunch of other things in the works that I think people can look forward to, what is kind of the way you would define this new era for movement?
Community first, developer first is what we're focused on. I think people would be shocked at how bad the experience of developers is in crypto, where even the most benign asks of support or help are met with stone walls. And so from our side, it's like, hey, there's two things. Number one is the support, and number two is the financial potential and economic mobility to be able to build a successful product, raise funds, and then find PMF, right? So we have a lot of work ahead of us, but that has to be the goal. And so obviously the cool thing about having our own validators and having staking is that we are using them to support our global hubs. So our global hubs is an initiative where, when I looked at, one of the reasons when you asked, why did you stay at Movement? It was, dude, we have this crazy community. So before TGE, everyone has an amazing community. The Discord's popping. Everyone's in there because everyone's farming an airdrop, right? And it is what it is. It's game. But what happens that post TGE, especially if the token price is not up and to the right, a lot of these people, they just leave, right?
Yeah.
And so then at that moment is when you know who your community is. Now, for us, we actually had it even worse than most tokens and most projects because of everything that happened. And the fact that we have this community made me realize, like, hey, we have something special. Like, there's like some lightning in a bottle. I can't really grasp it, but I can see it. I can smell it. I can taste it. And so we said, how do we use this as leverage? And so what we did is we created these global hubs across the globe, you know, in Ho Chi Minh, Hanoi, Istanbul, Frankfurt. I'm missing a bunch of cities. And so essentially we're setting them up there for activation. So we're building them as hubs where people can go and onboard developers and just onboard users. And so that's what I'm really excited about, is that the validators, we're taking a portion of those rewards to make it economically viable and sustainable, self-sustaining. So that's a cool thing about the staking that I can actually use, as opposed to, oh, everyone gets X% APY. That's kind of table stakes at this point.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think also on the front of like, it feels like a new start for you guys, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, we internally call it Phoenix, rising from the ashes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
What does success look like for this Phoenix then, rising from the ashes, movement's new era?
I think that if we can onboard new users to crypto, but without them knowing it's crypto, right? Because that's the whole thing. It's like, if they know it's crypto, then you didn't do a good enough job. If we can do that, and we can bring a team of young builders who are like, look, they ride their ship to the shore and they burn the ship. Like, we need those types of builders, but we have to create an environment where we're worth someone burning their ships for. So if we can create that and then meet users where they are, that to me is success. So there's no real, we always talk about this, your KPIs, and it's really hard not to have KPIs. But at the end of the day, KPIs is directional. It is not the goal. And so for me, that internally, we have KPIs, but I tell people, listen, you can fail and still hit these KPIs, because if you cheat the system and you rub the testosterone cream all over yourself, then you're playing yourself, right? So for us, directionally, it's build cool shit for real people. Like, if we can just do that, then we win. And so that's what I'm focused on.
Amazing. Yeah. Last thing, Torab, can you leave us with a piece of advice, something that you've carried with you throughout your time?
Good advice. I would say that life will always have its ups and downs, but okay, I didn't want to say smell the roses type of thing, but I do think that anytime you go through something great or something bad, like, you should take care of yourself, in the sense of, I don't know, like, buy yourself something nice, or go take that trip, because the thing is, like, I think a lot of times, and part of this is from my experience, right? When I thought about when everything happened, I was like, man, I missed those soccer games, those birthday parties, or whatever. Now, it's easy to say that in retrospect, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And sometimes you do need to make those tough decisions, and you do need to go into monk mode, as we call it, right? But at the same time, don't forget the people that really matter. Like my mom, she always calls me. You don't call me enough. So
call your mother.
Yeah, well, yeah, call mom. Also, like, I think, I don't know, it's like, I mean, every ethnicity jokes that their moms are different. Like, they're very, like the Jewish mom, the Persian mom, whatever. So my mom is Persian Afghan. And so, like, if I don't call her at least every other day, I get cussed out. Not really cussed out, but she's like, oh, did movement?
I get it, yeah.
Did movement carry you for 9 months? I'm like, all right, man, come on. And so
past 9 months,
yeah, exactly. So so from my perspective, I would just say, take care of your family, and don't take those relationships for granted, because once they're gone, like, everything else can come back, but that can't. Corny advice, but I can say it rings true.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Torab, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.